This is the Draft Guys podcast with Peyton and Niko, and we welcome you back to the channel 2 days away from the NFL draft. And we have to get you guys our 4 round final individual mocks. I am your host, Niko Chambers. Niko, the draft guy, you can call me, alongside my co host, PDunn. PDunn, how's it going?
I'm good, man. It keeps getting crazier the closer and closer we get. I can't believe we're 2 days away. This is a fun one. Obviously, this is about as pure prediction as it can get. This is purely what we think will happen on a much larger scale with the 4 rounds. So I'm stoked. Let's see what you got here.
Yeah, man, this one took a while. This was one of the longer ones that we've done all season, but at the end of the day, it had to be done. And I think it will shock a lot of people. Well, basically, the way we'll do it here is I will reveal my 4 rounds. Obviously, one, round two, round three, and then round four. And then P Dunn will reveal his. And P Dunn has not seen my draft. I have not seen P Dunn's draft. That's something that we've never done on the podcast before. Usually, I'm the one making the graphics, so I usually see P Dunn's beforehand, before the show. We both found a way to not see it. So we are going to react live. That's probably going to be what's in the thumbnail. We're reacting live to these right now. We'll go straight into my round one picks. And I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to let Pete look at it and tell me what he's thinking. Pure reaction based. Here we go.
All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, interesting. So starting at the top, I like this a lot. I like that you went Reese at 2. I think that's the right pick. I think that's where they need to go. I think that's where they should go. Love at 3 is interesting because I've like seen very, very conflicting reports on that. I've seen a lot of like, okay, is he get like I've seen like they're not interested in him at all and they have no interest in him. And then I've heard they're like fully sold on taking him at 3. So I have no idea what's coming out of their org. Hmm. Let's see. What's shocking here? Ooh, Falk at 15 is really interesting. Really interesting because that's less of the pass rusher type, more of the really good player type that they're not reaching on. Um, there's a lot here. So I haven't seen Delane a lot at 8 to the Saints. I haven't seen Bain a lot to the 7 at Commanders. This is really fun. This is fun. I like a lot of this.
I think it's going to
Um,
be awesome. You're looking at the screen and there's just, I went back and forth about what's going to happen. And I'll specifically talk about three, man. Three was the hardest to mock, because, what do they do? Or really, honestly, two was pretty hard too, because like it's pretty much 50-50 right now. I think it should be Arvell Reese. I think Pete Dunn thinks it should be Arvell Reese. But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if when Pete Dunn shows me his round one, it is David Bailey because of everything that's going on. I do think that the Cardinals try to field calls to trade back, and they end up, you know, something falls through, and they end up taking the best player available. They go with Jeremiah Love. That's kind of my rationale there. How do you feel about the Giants and the two guys that they get here?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Those are both guys we've had them taking at 5 before. Downs got a lot of steam to go at 5 for a long time, and I think it's really interesting that if they can wait and have a chance to select him at 10, I think that'd be really fascinating. Bailey at 9 to the Chiefs, I also think is really interesting because I haven't seen that a lot. He doesn't really seem like their type, but if they deem him as BPA in that spot, their type hasn't really worked at edge rusher is something that I think is interesting. You know what I mean? They haven't really gotten the production out of Karlaftis and some of these other guys they've tried to draft over the last few years. So if they do end up going in a different direction with Bailey, that wouldn't shock me at all, and I think it'd be a really great pick. Miami going to at Tyson at 11 and then Sadiq at 30 is nasty. With Willis and Achan, that offense is terrifying. It for like purely from an offensive from a defensive perspective, like there's so many dudes to guard at once. Like that is awesome if they could pull that off. That'd be really crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun. I had some trouble here with Jermod McCoy, hearing the reports about his knee and remembering last year what happened with Will Johnson in a very, very, very similar situation. I really wanted to mock him 16 to the Jets. I ended up going 20 to the Cowboys, and I ended up going Peter Woods 16 to the Jets, which that could be more of a very hot take. I've seen people, mocking him out of the first round. I'm not sure. I do have Ty Simpson ultimately getting selected by the Cardinals, who trade up with the Panthers at 19. They're going to give that second and the third round pick this year to do so that they can get 2 first rounders, and they're going to walk away with Ty Simpson and Jeremiah Love.
Malachi Lawrence going at 27 is awesome. I think that's so cool. I love that pick. I think he's absolutely worthy of going in that range. Really fun player. I think CJ Allen still sneaking into the first round is awesome because I think a lot of people have written that off in that range, and I don't think it's worth doing that at all. I have not wavered on my grade at him. I still have a top 15 grade on him in this class. I think he's a really, really good football player. What else do I want to talk about here? As a Bears fan, I like the McDonald pick. I think if they were still to take defensive tackle, I really do think there's a chance it's still Banks. I think that's a team that would be willing to take a swing on Banks. We'll show you later what they do in my mock draft, which I think will also be interesting. Terrell going to 29. Shame, I think, is the only way that I can say that. I think it's a shame that he goes in that range. He's a much better player than that. Um, yeah, KC going to 23, especially with the AJ Brown stuff that we've seen, really fun spot. Him and Smitty as that new two receivers. It's going to be interesting to see how they try and supplement that position. Maybe even in this draft down the board, if you in your mock draft, they go another receiver to try and get another X there. Something that I think they would for sure be interested in doing. Yeah, this is fun. I do want to talk about Simpson a little bit because it's so interesting trying to figure out where his range is. Like my thought process is if Jackson Dart can go in the first round last year, and I don't think about the year Jackson Dart had as a rookie. I'm talking about the prospect Jackson Dart was. If he can go in the first round, there's no way Ty Simpson's not going in the first round, unless he was a better draft class than this year, is my thought process. So I just I feel like he has to go in the first. But again, like with the reports that were going out, it's really hard to decipher whether he's going to be a first round pick or whether he's going to fall to that second round.
Yeah, I think that also the Steelers are going to be in play for him. Also, that's why I have them trading up to 19 to jump 2 spots before that Steelers selection, where they're ultimately going to go Denzel Boston. I think that he's very slept on in this draft. And I feel like another thing you have to look at is the top 30 visits. That's a really important statistic to look at, how many guys are getting in the building. And when it came to these wide receivers, a lot of these guys had top 30 visits with them, with these teams, specifically Makai Lemon. The Rams had like 4 visits, and Makai Lemon was one of them. That just tells me all you need to know about how they feel about him. And just think about it, man. Devontae Adams, I'm not high on Makai Lemon by any stretch, but if you have Makai Lemon, Devontae Adams, and Puka trying to go in all in for a Super Bowl, I mean, that's pretty respectable. Even a Seahawks fan can admit that. I mean, that's going to be tough to guard, especially with all the guys that left the building. That's why they're going to supplement really well with Brandon Cisse at 32. That's what the Seahawks are going to do. I think Spencer Fano falling to 26 was one of the more shocking things while I'm mocking this. Hot take, a lot of these tackles that have gotten a lot of buzz, I don't think they're going to go as high as a lot of these other, mocks are having them go. And I don't know about your mock, I mean, I guess we'll have to see for that. But before we move on, are there any burning desires that you have to talk about on this list?
Um, no, I have one, but I'll keep my mouth shut about it because it's very similar to my mock draft, so we'll talk about it later.
Very, very, very interesting. We'll move on here to the round two selections. PDunn will also have a reaction to this. Round 3 and 4, I'll kind of talk about my guys. But PDunn, what jumps off the screen to you?
Price at 35 is awesome. That's a great spot. If you miss out on the other Notre Dame running back at 4, then I think going Price at 35 is pretty great. Another same reason, get Ward another weapon and be able to supplement that young quarterback. I think is really cool. Holy cow, Caleb Banks going to the New York Giants is absolutely incredible. Like that you cannot draw it up any better for them going Banks there. Like with the getting number 10 and Caleb Banks is just absurd. That would be very, very good. What do we got here? Lomu going to the Chiefs at 40, I think is interesting. I would assume he'd be playing right tackle for that team because Josh Simmons is at left, so he would be transitioning to the other side. That's something he's done before in college. He's played both sides of that line throughout his college career, so absolutely something he's capable of doing. Um, Zion Young going to the Dolphins is a great pick. That's a really great pick. You want to talk about a high floor guy, just a guy that you know is going to be good, and that's kind of the players they need in that room right now. Really, really cool. Chris Johnson. How many times have we said, Chris Johnson, you are just such a Green Bay Packer? I feel like we've had this conversation before that he is just exactly what they look for at that corner position. Max Clare going to the Eagles at 54, probably my favorite pick on this whole slide. Just such a great spot for him. He doesn't have to be tight end one immediately. He can be tight end two, kind of assimilate, figure out what weight he wants to play at, because it's a big question mark I have for him. But eventually get down to that right weight. Um, Iheanacho at 51. Truth be told, I don't think he makes it to 51. But if he does, the Panthers is a really good landing spot for him. Pregnon, great for the Lions. Feels like a very good line. We had a conversation when we hopped on the Zoom pre-recording about like how many times it took us to figure out these mock drafts. And this was, I have 4, 5, 6 attempts trying to figure out how we wanted to do this with restarting the mock over and over again. And Pregnon, there was a couple things I did where he was a first round player for me. And so don't be surprised at all if, Thursday night rolls around and he's a late first round pick. If Fano's off the board, like Bill's spot where the Bills took Fano, could totally see them going Pregnon in that spot. So absolutely like that. Halsey to the Bears as a Bears fan, I think it's fantastic. Akers brings a whole different aspect to that edge rush room that we don't have right now, which I think is also really good. Um, Darrell Jackson Jr. going at 55 is early. That's early for
Ooh,
him. I don't
okay.
have him going in that range. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes there. I'd be shocked if he went over some of the other names that are in that spot. I'd be shocked if he went over Halton. I'd be shocked if he went over Dominic Orange. Some of those other guys that I think are obviously defensive tackles as well. So I think that would definitely be interesting.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, I think that Colton Hood for me, he's going to come off the board at 33 to the Jets. They desperately need a cornerback. That's going to be a really good move. I think EMW, he could be a first round pick. He could be in play at 19. Here, of course, they trade back with the Cardinals, essentially, and that's what this pick comes from. But yeah, if you can get Iheanacho and EMW, that's a really good draft. Zachariah Branch, I mean, tell me this guy isn't just a Raider. It just makes sense. It's awesome. I love it. Kristen Miller, another one of those guys who's just a Texan through and through.
Yeah.
Cassius Howell, super, super interesting. You get two Texas A&M players, of course, with Miles Garrett on the other side. That would be super cool. Super good pairing. I like Pons a lot to the Bengals at that spot. You need secondary help desperately, and Pons is a playmaker. Chris Bell, super interesting going to the Saints. Tyler Shuck's teammate last year, something to note there at Louisville. Chris Brazel to the Jets. I think that if they're not going to go receiver in the first round, I think this is definitely in play, a big body receiver. You don't really have that on the team with A.D. Mitchell and Garrett Wilson. So that would be a really good spot. Anthony Hill, man, this was one of those things where I'm doing the mock and I'm just like, whoa, I forgot he was even on the list. But I think this is a realistic slide for him in this spot. Could be super interesting. I'll wrap it up with Keelan Rutledge going to the Steelers. I think that would be a great, great selection. And Mike Washington going to the Seahawks. That is
Yeah.
perfect in my book. I would love to see that. I'll move on to the round three. I'll talk about it. And yeah, I think Kyle Lewis is going to start off round three. He's going to be that big nickel. We've mocked him here before to the Panthers. I think it would be a lot of fun. Traydon Stukes getting a lot of buzz. I have him as a safety, more of that, but a lot more buzz. And I think that, the Eagles always find a way to get kind of some of the best players. I have Skylar Bell going to the Commanders. A lot of our fans should be happy about that because that's a really good spot for him, kind of go along with what they have over there in Washington. Jude Bowery going to the Bengals, big fan of that. Malachi Fields to the Chiefs, man. How about you go get yourself a big body receiver? That's nothing like Kansas City Chiefs ever draft. That would be shocking. Malik Muhammad, we always mock him here. I mean, we mock him everywhere for being real, but I really like Miami here at 75. Harold Perkins could be in play for the Steelers. I saw very intriguing top 30 visit with him. I like Julian Neal going to the Ravens. Big fan of that. They need kind of some secondary depth. I think that would be helpful in a way. Emmett Johnson going to the Jaguars. Obviously, you lose ETN. You need to supplement in some way. So you're going to do it right here with Emmett Johnson and Jalen Kilgore going to the Bills. I know you love him. I think this is a really good spot for him. It will be super interesting. I'll move quickly into round four. It's going to start with Drew Aller here going at 103, round four pick to the Jets. Super high on him. I think that would be perfect. I mean, the Giants, man, what a draft if you can get Raridon here in the fourth with what you got with Downs, Cornell Tate, and Caleb Banks. I mean, come on, man. That's just an unbelievable draft. And you know what happens with teams that draft super well? They go to the Super Bowl. We saw that last year. Maybe the Giants, man, I don't know, but that they're last in the division last year. They had the easy schedule that they're about to have. Like Giants fans should be rejoicing with everything that's going on. Katron Allen gonna find his way to the Denver Broncos. Damon Claiborne, very high on him out of Wake Forest, the running back. Gonna go 112 here to the Cowboys. Man, this list is so cool. Dante Corleone could find a little spot in Green Bay. Maybe not in the nose tackle spot, but I think that he can hold his own wherever he goes. Nadame Tucker, the edge out of Western Michigan, going to the Bills. It could be super interesting. Billy Scrouth falling all the way to the Lions, who you were going to double dip. They took Pregnon. They're going to take Scrouth now. Why not? You go get the great guy. Zayden Durant going to the Raiders. I'm a big fan of that. And of course, Ephesians Prysock going to the San Francisco 49ers. We love to see it. I'm very high on him. But the moment will be here for PDunn's round one of the mock draft. PDunn, can you prepare me in any way, or do you just want to go straight into this?
I don't think I can prepare you. I'm so excited to see what you have reacted to this. So let's just jump right into it.
All right, let's see what we got. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay, so first thing that jumps off to me, Jordan Tyson at 5, Caden Proctor at 6. That is wild. I think everything else, man, Maui Noah falling to 10 and the Giants grabbing him. I really like that. Sonny Styles at 3. Talk to me about the rationale behind that.
Yeah, I think they're in a position where they're going to go PPA. I don't think they're in the place for Ruben Bain. And I think they come to the consensus that Maui Noah, it's simply too early to take that player. You talk about the value of Sonny Styles versus the value of Maui Noah. You're going to have to stick and pick at 3. I really don't think anybody's going to be willing to move up with you. And if they're going to do that, I think they're going to take the best player available and the one who's the most impactful. And so I think you trust that maybe down the board you can find a right tackle. Maybe in the next few years you can find a right tackle. Sonny Styles is the most impactful player and absolutely the best player available at this position, and then at this spot in the draft. So I think that they would end up going there at 3. With Tyson at 5, I can't explain it, man. I've just got a gut feeling about it. Sometimes in the industry that we're in, you see stuff and it just clicks. And right now it's just clicking with me on Tyson. I don't know if I'm going to be right, but with the way the momentum is going and the fact that they have 10 as well, I think they're going to be willing to take more of a swing. And that's a big swing there at 5. And then obviously Proctor. I've heard this buzz before. It's just what the NFL does, man. These organizations do it over and over and over again, where they take these players that are the high upside guys that they're willing to take some time and develop. Caden Proctor's absolutely that. And in a class where there's not a superstar tackle like a Joe Alt, Caden Proctor is someone that I think they're going to be willing to take a bet on.
Yeah, I see a lot of congruent team landing spots within our mocks. Maybe not the same, pick per se, but Makai Lemon, that's a check mark for both of us. Owane,
Yeah.
check mark. Colton Hood, check mark. I mean, looking at the list, Akeem Mesidor is a check mark. You're looking
Yeah.
even farther, and I see Zion Young's a check mark as well. Like, there are some really good things. I'm super hype about Jadarian Price. If we can get him at 32, that would be amazing. Interesting to see you go and Dylan Thiedemann to the Cowboys at 12. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I just the way the board fell without either of the linebackers making it there, without any of the corners or without Delane making it there, and I really don't think McCoy or Terrell is going to go in this range anymore. When 2 weeks ago I would have been happy mocking either one of those there. Bain is obviously a guy that almost did, which would be insane, and I think they'd take him there if they had the opportunity to. But with the way that the board fell, there was no one else I thought was really worthy of that pick. Like looking at the picks below them. So Lemon, Owane, Bailey, Hood, Deanna Chor, McCoy, Freeling, Mesidor. Like I know they ended up with Mesidor at 20, but I don't think like any of those guys they'd be as excited to take about Thieneman. And I really think the buzz for him right now is taken off. I really do think that he is going to go in a range like this. I want to talk about Banks at 25 because we talked about briefly them going defensive tackle. I really do think there's a chance that he goes there. I think that's the range. The Bears organization seems like they're going to be willing to do that. But again, if it's not the Bears, could totally see the Bills doing it. If it's not the Bills, the Niners could absolutely as well. Chiefs, I've mocked him at 9 to the Chiefs for a long time. So if he's there at 29, I think that would also be really cool. Yeah, another one that I thought was pretty interesting was Golday at 31. And I wanted to throw in a little bit of a curveball specifically there. just I feel like he's more of what they're looking for at that position. I just always find myself mocking them a linebacker in that spot. And, I was looking at the ones available, and he just kind of felt like the most Patriot out of the group. I wanted to throw something in that I feel like was realistic and could happen on draft night, and it ended up being that Golday would go there at 31.
Yeah, this is super interesting. Peter Woods going to the Niners. That's something I haven't seen mocked. That's super intriguing to me. Ihanachor going before Freeling is very interesting considering how high PDunn is on Freeling, but of course, this is what the team would do type of mock. Jamal McCoy, they're taking a chance on Jamal McCoy here at 18. That's the Vikings. I was tempted to do the same thing with Omar Cooper Jr. to the Steelers. I don't know why. I just think that this is a receiver pick. You have to address the receiver. The DK thing is not working out. I could see him even getting traded on Thursday. You
Yeah.
never even know what could happen in these situations. We'll go back to the top 10 and specifically talking about the Chiefs, man. If you can land Mansour Delane and Keldrick Folk, I think you're going back to the Super Bowl. That's going to be a nightmare. That's going to be a big issue. Interesting to see you went downs to the Commanders. It's really a toss-up. I think anything is in play. Carnell Tate falling all the way to 8, and going after Tyson is super intriguing. I think obviously Arvo Reese going at 2, pretty consensus. I'm really high on Jeremiah Love going at 4 if he's there. But of course, Sonny Styles is the main ticker. Everything else looks pretty chalk. I'm very impressed by this. I love Blake Miller getting thrown in there. Love him going to the Texans here. And yeah, this is a really good mock. Definitely different in a way. Of course, we have Styles and Love swapping places in both of our mocks, but everything else looks pretty interesting. We'll move to your round 2 and I'll react to it. Let's see what we got. Oh, okay. All right. So Ty Simpson going to the Cardinals. First thing that comes off the board. Pregnon, really good move to the Titans. Yeah, I love Caden McDonald to the Jets. That's a really good move. Avion Terrell, man, the Giants find a way. Falling all the way. I didn't even mention that in the last slide. Going to 37, the Giants are going to be big winners of this draft class. We already know about it. TJ Parker also falling out. Sadiq falling out. Talk to me about Sadiq because when I had him at
That's the
30,
one.
I considered I considered redoing the whole draft. I'm like, wait a minute. He dropped all the way to
Yeah.
30. Like, what? I need to redo this, but that's realistic.
Yeah, so that's the one that when we were on your slide, I was like, I'm not going to talk about it yet because it's crazier on mine. And I think, I mean, honestly, man, like this is something realistic that could happen. And it's not a coincidence that in both of our mock drafts, we both saw the opportunity and he just continued to fall. Like that's not a coincidence. I think this is a real thing that could happen. I think that there's honestly there might be some holdup in the league and some question marks around, or is it really worth taking a guy that's so unpolished at a non-important position? I mean, you saw Kyle Pitts, who was a way more polished prospect, just not work out in the NFL. And this is a even less polished receiver in Kenyon Sadiq. Again, I think it's something very realistic that could happen. What else do I want to talk about? Simpson, again, we talked about it earlier. I couldn't find a spot for him in that first round. And I think that there's a chance that maybe that 34 pick is 32 and they swap with the Hawks, or 31, they swap with the Patriots. And they have so much assets. They're going to move back into the end of that first round if they're going to take Ty Simpson just to get that 5th-year contract on him. But I really do have a strong feeling that he's going to be a Cardinal similar to you.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Going back to the Sadiq thing, I just think that the league just doesn't really need tight ends. Not only are they really viewing it as, a non-premium position, but like the need to take a first round tight end is not high. I mean, you're thinking about the guys last year with Loveland and Warren, and then even a year before with Bowers. Like Sadiq is not on their level in terms of
No.
prospect. So, I mean, this is not a surprise at all. I mean, Zachariah Branch to the Falcons would feed families, literally. That's an unbelievable landing spot. Probably one of the best ones for him. EMW finding his way at 49 to, this Vikings team after what did they do in the first? They took McCoy. So, I mean, that secondary is just sick. CJ
Yeah.
Allen going at 51 also. It's just like, man, embarrassment of riches for that Panthers team if you can get Freeling at their pick at 19. Keontae Scott, we've mocked him here before. Love that pick to the Green Bay Packers. Interesting that you go Kilgore. We're consensus on Max Clare going at 54 to the Eagles. Super cool. Malachi Fields going at 46. You got to talk to me about that.
Dude, this is one of my, this might be like, a top five landing spot out of any prospect in the draft for me, with him going to be to a Buccaneer. I mean, with the Mike Evans replacement, he is the closest Mike Evans replacement and the play style aspect in this draft, right? That is who you, the play style. I'm not saying he's the same caliber player, but the play style, that's the way he plays. And you just plug him in with that offense with, a Godwin that hopefully returns and Ibuka hopefully having a bounce back because the back half of the year wasn't as great as the first half. That's a good receiver room. And I think that fit is probably, like I said, probably one of my favorites in this entire draft.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I see Stowers on this page at 62 to, this Broncos team where once upon a time when, they had their first round pick before trading Waddle to the Dolphins, we were mocking him at 30 to that team. And
Yeah.
now, the stock has definitely fallen, but it's more where it should be because he had a crazy combine, but not a crazy college career. So that's really good. I had him actually going to the Texans at 59, which would be also a really good spot for them, somewhere where he can kind of be that big body receiver with a team that doesn't have a true wide receiver one. I think that's what you're looking for there. Anthony Hill and Igbinosun. I mean, talk to me, PDunn. Those are your great picks for the Bears.
Yeah, I like both of those a lot. The corner with Igbinosun going to the Bears, I think is really interesting. I was toggling back and forth between him and Muhammad at that spot. I feel like one of their first picks, one of the three picks, is going to be a corner. I don't think they're going to go corner in the first round, and I absolutely think that someone that's going to have that physical brand of football is going to be in play for them. And Muhammad and Igbinosun really fit that. I think that Igbinosun is just a little bit more their type, and then Anthony Hill, just a downhill athletic linebacker, just fits that Bears mold of what they're looking for with an aging linebacker core. I think to get a really good one on a rookie contract is something they would want to do.
Yeah, I didn't talk about Cisse at 41. That another corner going here to Bengals. I think that 41 pick has to be a corner. I went Pons there. It's got to be Cisse. You went Pons to pick after to the Saints. Super high on that. Jeremy Bernard, if he can find his way to Miami, that's a six spot for him. I think Malachi Lawrence is probably the biggest one, man. Damn, 55. Well, do you think his stock's gonna drop or?
No, it's just one of those things like people have to drop, right? And so I just EMW is much higher than 49 on my big board. I couldn't find a spot for him specifically on that middle tier between 44 and 54. A lot of those guys just I don't think are going to be drafting edge rusher. And so if he doesn't go between 33 and 43, I think he might fall to this range and he would be an amazing charger. He would be really, really great in that spot. I do want to talk about Abney at 64. Obviously for your team, the Seahawks. There's talks. I've seen them taking them at 32 in that range. If the corners go off the board early, that's absolutely something that I've seen we've done in our mock drafts before. If they can get him at 64, I think that would be really, really great value and fill that corner room really well.
Yeah, another consensus thing. Lee Hunter going at 45. Both of us had him right there. It's just a Ravens pick, in my opinion. Yeah, I think this is really good. Chris Johnson here at 50 would be a great spot for him. I had him at 52. So the range is there for Chris Johnson. I think it'll be super, super fun. I'll let Pete Dunn take over and talk to me about his round three selections.
All right, getting it around three here. Cassius Howell going at 55 was just one that again, I see it happening, and I think that there's
Wow.
going to be a fall there for him. There's just a lot of these other edge rushers I was just more willing to take, and I think are more translatable to the NFL level. In that system that the Cardinals run, I think he would be great, and I think that's a really good spot for him. Surratt going at 67 is just they have to get another receiver in that room. He's an X with a high floor. And that's something I could totally see them doing. Joshua Joseph just fits the Eagles mold really well. He just fits that type of edge rusher that they're looking for. Super athletic. Jolie going to the Texans, absolutely one that I think that they're going to want to pick up a tight end at some point. And if those first few are off the board, they're going to go for the more receiving guy. I was toggling between him and Raridan. What is that tight end from I forget his name. They came out of Ohio State a couple years ago. Who's very similar to Raritan. And so I figured they would get a different type in there with Justin Jolie. Tiernan at 70, the Browns, one of my favorite picks in the whole draft out of these first three rounds. He's just such a great pass protecting left tackle. And I think if you do want to start him on the right side, I think he's absolutely capable of doing that. Just get a really good pass protector in there alongside Proctor. You get two tackles that could be your starting tackles for the next 10 years. And that's a really, really special thing to do in an NFL draft. The Browns, if they do this, would continue to kill it. They've really struggled. They really have killed it the last few years. And this would be another great draft for them. Connor Liu, jumping over a little bit, Connor Liu going at 82 to the Vikings is one of my favorite picks. They need a center. I think he's the best one in this draft. If they can draft him, along with what they did to supplement that secondary, hopefully one of those two quarterbacks will be good, and that'd be a really, really good draft for the Vikings. Aller at 76. I just kind of got to a point where looking at the rest of the board with everything that's happened with their quarterback room is I couldn't find myself wanting to draft anyone other than him. I think he was the most value spot at that position. And then moving down the board, Malik Muhammad going at 85 was a little interesting. Again, a player I'm much higher on. I'm surprised that he fell that far for me. But again, we're trying to make this a little more realistic. I think Harold Perkins going at 93 might catch some people off guard. With the athlete that he is, someone's going to take a swing on him in this range. He's just such a fantastic athlete and he moves so well. There's a lot there that he's still struggling to develop, but the Rams don't need him to play immediately. And that's someone I think in that defense somewhere where he can develop.
Yeah, this is really good all around. Mike Washington, really, really good landing spot. I never even thought about
Yeah.
that. Bringing him to Washington to play for the Commanders, that would be super interesting. Yeah, really good all around. I like Lawson going to that Vikings team there. I'll move on to PDunn's fourth round. PDunn, what you got for me?
All right. Jets going Cade Klubnik, I think is interesting. This is a spot that I've liked him at before. If this is a guy that if Gino goes down, then I think that there's another opportunity for you to take him. And then you notice that it's interesting. I also have them going back at 140. We've seen this happen previously. The Browns literally did it last year. When there's a wide open quarterback room, these teams will double up on quarterback. This is something we've seen historically. And the Jets I think would be willing to do that in this situation if Beck continues to fall. Not the only team I had doubling up on quarterback. Steelers go Garrett Nussmeier at 135. A lot of people might think that's interesting. Again, this is something that really could happen, especially if Rodgers doesn't come back and they just need another guy in that room. If they can draft Aller and draft Nussmeier, I think that would be really interesting. One of my favorite spots here is Markel Bell at 137 to the Eagles. A developmental tackle going to a place like that to get developed. They have Cam Williams that they drafted last year. You have Markel Bell that you draft this year, two developmental tackles. Most likely sitting behind Lane Johnson and that Eagles offensive line, the way they develop tackles, one of those guys is going to work out. And you're not going to have to use a first round pick on a tackle. You're going to have the successor for Lane Johnson sitting there. And that's how you build a really good program. That's what the Eagles have always done. Romello Height going at 116, another one of my favorite picks. They went David Bailey at 15. He was sitting there the teammate of David Bailey, they need pass rush so bad. And I was just looking at the draft that they've had, and I could not go in another direction other than Romello Height there in that position. Um, what else do we have here? Brailsford going at 114, I think is really interesting because the conversation you have with him is he has to be Jason Kelsey, right? And so what better spot for him to go than to be an Eagle? That's the best landing spot for him. I think if he's going to succeed, that would be a really, really great spot for him. Adam Randall going at 133, I think is also a really fun one. You know, you look at the Christian McCaffrey, obviously being the running back there right now, and that's kind of the play style that he has to mirror, that he has to be able to do because he was a receiver for a long time at Clemson and then ended up transferring to running back and played good at running back, but obviously that receiver skill set is still important to him and a big part of his game. So what better spot and learning role for him to go in than to sit behind Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, big fan of the running backs that go off the board here. Emmett Johnson, the landing spot to the Broncos. Katron Allen heading to the Steelers there, and Damon Claiborne to the Falcons. Really well done, in my opinion. I love it. We love it. We'll go really quickly back to the front. And Peter, and I want you to list a landing spot that you absolutely hate, a Shamar Stewart-esque landing spot that is not going to work.
Okay. You're gonna hate this, and you're because this is your favorite play in the draft. Falk at 15, I don't think works because I think they
Ooh.
need a pass rusher so bad. I don't think that's the. I think it's almost the complete opposite of the player that they would be looking for in that position. So that's the main one that jumps out to me. I think Bailey is just not their type, the Chiefs' type. and I'm just not a Bailey guy in the top 10 anyway. Other than that, though, I don't have I don't hate any of this. But if I
Very.
had to pick one, that's what I would say.
I'll go to yours. I'll give you mine really quickly. Oh man, something that I hate. I think that I don't like Caden Proctor going there, but I understand why you put him there. I just don't. I know, like you take Maui Noah or you take a wide receiver, and end of the day, they're complicating this way too much. Floating around with Freeling, I would actually. Freeling was on the list at 6. I would probably say I didn't like that pick either. I'm just not a Freeling type in the top 10. Looking down the list, maybe. Maybe Caleb Banks. I think it would be a good fit, but I don't know. It's a reach maybe in a way. I don't like Lomu going to the Eagles. That's the one I'll say. Not a big fan of Lomu. I don't know how that's going to turn out for him. Let's go to your second round. We'll do this really quickly. Pick that I don't really like here. What do we got? I think that I don't like Chris Bell going to the Niners. I just don't think that that's a fit for them. Very interesting to see if that actually happens. Chris Brazzell, that could be a conflict when you're looking at what they have in that room, everything that they have going on. But I understand the need to go wide receiver. We'll go straight back to mine. PDunn, what do you got?
Let's take a look here. Hmm. Actually, I do have one. Go back to your first round. I have one that I hate that I didn't mention. Denzel Boston in a room with DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. is just like, you ever seen the picture of the three dragons just sitting next to each other, the
Yep.
exact same? That's what it seems like to me. They're the same skill set, the same receiver. I figured if KC was on the board or Cooper was on the board, they would probably look to go in a different position. Um, but I don't think go back to the second round. I'll give you one for the second round real quick. Um, real quick, what do I not like? Oh, Brazel at going at 44. That's funny. We both said Brazel, but they have AD Mitchell, and they're such a similar player with a taller, lankier, shiftier receiver that I think they would want to develop him a little bit more. Um, Other than that, though, I don't hate any of this. I think that's the one that I would say is Brazel at 44.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. This was a necessary episode, of course, and tomorrow is going to be probably the most necessary one of them all. The granddaddy of them all, we'll call it. That is our joint mock draft special coming at you live the eve of the NFL draft. We are 2 days away, and we thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. You're definitely going to want to tune in for that. And of course, the coverage of the draft even after it happens. And the night of the draft, also, we'll have a first react video right after the first round. So you can hear everything that we feel about the first round as it happens. And yeah, we'll be comparing all of our mock drafts from the Niko the Draft Guy, the Draft Guys podcast franchise throughout the process to see which one is truly right. But I'm telling you right now, Niko's is going to be the most correct out of this list right here. We thank you guys so much for tuning in.